Google doesn't hear from you in 3 months, they start searching for next kin.
Wow.
Take care of your cat. So you could set that up as a policy if you want.
Wow.
Because it's all those photographs.
That's
Yeah.
also
Don't just
really
delete them.
scary.
Yeah.
So speaking of scary, so when we were flying I think both ways, probably to Spain, we were each watching a movie at some point on the airplane. And after I got home, I was searching for something, and I think it may have been on Amazon. It may have been on Amazon. But you know how they give you all these suggestions at the bottom of the screen on Amazon? 2 of their suggestions were the 2 movies that Rod and I watched while we were on the airplane. Now, how in the world is that?
They're starting to read your mind. We're in trouble.
Well, and then so Rod's like, okay, well, they know who's sitting in each seat
Yes.
on the airplane.
So they're selling that
That
data.
data is there.
Yeah, they're selling it to Amazon. But the fact that they sold it so quickly
Yeah,
and it got into that relational database and then boom, had to be spit out on your pages, your search pages. I mean, that stuff used to take months,
Yeah.
in the direct mail business, but now it's like, because when did you see those movies after you took the flight? I mean,
Well, it was like 2.5, 3 weeks
Okay,
after we took
all
the
right.
flight. But then when we got back,
it was right after we got home
Right.
when I was on Amazon. So it was like within like 2 days of being home.
but we
And it
flew
was
over.
2 weeks because
Yeah.
since we
Oh, I
saw
see,
the
I
movie.
see.
It was really like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what, Amazon's paying off a lawsuit for Alexis and
Yes.
one other
That is
device,
definitely,
Ring
that's
device.
nefarious. because
Listening and watching
that's
inappropriately.
Red line right there.
Yeah,
I don't mind them doing, relational marketing.
Yeah.
And send me stuff. Well, I just on the spectrum of stuff, but when they
start-
listen to you.
when their
that
employees are
is-
sitting there watching
Yeah.
video off the Ring.
Yeah.
And particularly it was of minors, that's what really they
Yeah.
got dinged
Wow.
for.
And doesn't that violate some federal law?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's wiretapping.
Well, and
Jeez.
I think the law is still, you can't take pictures of minors, that's against the law.
Yes.
Because a friend of ours, this was way back, some kids next door were shooting off firecrackers. She was pissed, and she took pictures of them to prove to the police. When she went to the police with the pictures,
And she
they
was
charged
arrested.
her with taking pictures of minors.
Wow.
So,
Well, I can't go out in my backyard in my pajamas anymore. My neighbors has one of those flying things.
oh, the drones.
I'm just standing around. I was planting some tomatoes and. Oh, geez. No more pajama tomato planting.
So I wonder if you tried to shoot those down with a BB gun. Is that? I know if I took out a 45, I'd get it.
Yeah,
Big fire.
discharging a
Right. But
I
how about
don't know whether a pellet gun or a BB gun falls in that.
Because when the woodpeckers were banging at my chimney, I was hitting them with the BB
I
gun.
think I've seen them. Nobody's there, right?
No.
This is gonna be more, this is
Discussion about the book of Toil. I'll do something so that I know where in this whole thing is.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's up to everybody else, I guess. Do you want to go into a discussion of the Book of Joy? Or do you want to talk about wiretapping and
I think joy would be better than wiretapping.
probably?
It would help.
Infinitely better.
These questions are so good.
Aren't they?
Yes.
Well, they're actually, do you have the book?
I just got the book, so I'm gonna read it.
Okay, cool. So Mike, in the back of the, you have this, yes. The questions are in the back of the book.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but
Oh,
not everybody had the
No,
same
yeah,
book.
my edition doesn't have that.
Mark's didn't have it, so.
But you gave me a photocopy.
Right. So anyway, just FYI, if you want to use this for reflection. And the other thing is, which I really hoped we would be able to get into, just ran out of time, was there are like meditations and exercises that you can do
Oh, good.
for each of the pillars and each of the, what are they? Distractions from joy, or whatever they call it.
Obstacles.
Obstacles, thank
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
distractions, obstacles.
Do you have the Calm app? I know you have
Calm, I did, and I took it off, yeah.
Oh, you took it off?
Yeah,
because that has guided meditations that are like perfect for this.
really?
Yeah.
Maybe
So
I'll
I've actually
guided meditation.
Wrote one down for myself to bring,
I
but
thought you had calm. Oh, okay.
it's Tamara Levitt, her morning calm is these guided meditations, and some of them come right out of this book.
Yes, bedtime stories.
I love those. Yeah, who's that Swedish guy?
I'll have to try. Oh, a Swedish
Eric
guy
Bauer.
telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Eric Ron Helen Sklar. I'm not so keen on Matthew McConaughey's and all this.
No.
And there's some others.
Yeah.
So it's not calm as in .com, it's
No,
calm, C-A-L.
As in, calm your heart.
It's a meditation.
Bedtime
app.
stories
It's
are very
good.
magic.
It's
Makes you take
highly
melatonin.
rated.
I think I've taken melatonin once in the past year because that calm app, just like that. It almost trains your mind that, when Brock or Bra starts talking, that will be a response.
He's got such a sort of a cool, mellifluous.
Yes. And the trains. The train.
Trains, I
Oh,
did the
that-
nature ones.
The what?
The nature ones.
Oh, yeah. The walk through the Connecticut woods.
Deer Woods.
Yeah. And then he's got Sklar
Pacific
has.
Crest Trail.
See, I guess I need to.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I don't have a hard time sleeping anymore, at all.
Well,
It's
or
sleep
just,
for me.
if you want to do meditating, guided meditation.
Well, I already have
What's the app that you use for that?
10% happier, I just got hooked on it. I have good people on there, Joseph. Yes, sir, we do. Okay, so we were gonna kind of look at generosity, because that's where Mark said we
Kind of skipped.
fell apart last time. We did fun. And we're still apart, see? Okay, so page 264. Is that right?
264, do the preface. Generosity is so important in all the world's religions because it no doubt expresses a fundamental aspect of our interdependence and our need for one another. Generosity was so important for our survival that the reward centers of our brain light up strongly when we give as well as receive, sometimes even more so.
Isn't that amazing?
So does Facebook know that?
Yeah, oh.
They
my
built their whole
gosh.
corporation on that idea,
Yes,
how we're wired to.
and that's just not fair.
What page was that?
264
toward the
at the
bottom.
bottom.
I think the final paragraph.
Generosity is so important for our survival that the reward centers of our brain light up as strongly when we give as well as receive.
So, have you ever thought about how it feels to be generous? How does it feel to be generous?
In the Depression, the train from Chicago would come through my town to go to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and the hobos would ride the train. And when it go through my town, the train slows down to about 30 miles an hour. So they would either jump on or jump off. And word got out that if you went up on the hill, there was this Italian woman that would give you a plate of pasta if you worked on her farm for a half hour. She had no money, she had 9 kids, and she would do that. And you go, wow.
They used to have markers,
ultimate-
right?
What?
Did you hear about that? The hobos used to have markers. So when somebody was generous to them, they would mark the fence or something.
Well, from
The
where the
approach
train
to the
was to her house, it was about a mile.
Yeah.
But somehow the word got out.
Mhm.
You stopped here and you were hungry, you get a plate of pasta, you had to work for it. My father worked with the migrant workers. And when they came up and lived in Michigan to do all the harvesting, they lived in barns, lived in cardboard boxes. As they assimilated into society, they couldn't get loans. They couldn't buy things. He would co-sign for them to buy a car. In those days, you could buy a car for $600, used one, or you could buy a bed for $150, but they didn't have $150. But you could pay $15 a month to pay it off. But he had to co-sign those loans. So he was doing about 30 to 35 co-sign loans a year.
Wow.
For about 10 years. In that 10 years, 2 of them defaulted. In 10 years. But I mean, he went. And I've done a lot of generous things, but not to that scale. And this one lady I met, she wanted to go to stewardess school, but didn't have the money. They loaned her $230. She became a stewardess, got out of the town, and did more. So that when you listen to my grandmother, she wouldn't talk about that. But my father talked about it. And the only reason he told the story was because out of 10 years, these Hispanic people that we denigrate and bemoan only had 2 defaults and maybe a $150 bed or a $200 washing machine that he had to co-sign for. So yeah, generosity for them was real special. They didn't really have the means, but found a way to do that. It always stayed with me then.
So you said that you've done some generous things.
Not to that level, I always felt I should do more.
Okay, but you have done generous
Oh,
things.
well, in my neighborhood, when the snows fall, I'm the first one to shovel everything and then stand there at the sidewalk and go, I'm 65 years old and nobody else is shoveling snow. You guys ought to be out here. And I go back inside. So I had my little lecture generosity. Surprisingly, a few sidewalks get shoveled. So I kind of have that lecture. For Christmas, I always give everybody a loaf of bread, 3 houses on either side. And I'm the only one that does Christmas cards to say.
So why do you do those things?
Because of what my grandmother and father did. They said, my grandmother had 9 kids in depression. How can you feed somebody else?
Yeah.
But she did. And that's like the lady that gives the 2 denarii. That's all she had. That's all my grandmother had, was food. Just in Prince Andrew. I grew up there for 12 years. When she died, the night she died, I sat with her. She thought I was her son, Frank, who had died in the war. And talked to me in Italian, and hugged me and kissed me, and then the next morning she had died. So we were best of friends for 12 years. Now she was a bigot, and when she disciplined you, she took a purse and she hit you on the head. And she had a good-sized purse, it would hurt. I deserved the hit. I don't know if I deserved a 10-pound purse there. But I was doing something. So she had her issues, but she also had this heart that was bigger than her body. And my father was the same way. And he had some real dark sides to him that we discovered later. That then calls upon, how do you address forgiveness? Can you forgive when terrible things were done?
You mean your father or your father-in-law?
So my father. My father-in-law was
Your
the better.
father-in-law was Archie Bunker.
Yeah, he was Archie Bunker and an alcoholic. But the things that my father did made him a much worse man than the Archie Bunker alcoholic.
I mean, my dad was Archie Bunker, but over the years of that show, he morphed a little bit.
Yes, he did.
You know, I mean, the
Well,
show
the way he
helped.
interacted with the
So he watched the
African-American
show?
He watched the show.
And internalized that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
And you saw that,
It's always fun.
that comedy sometimes communicates better than anything
Oh,
else.
yeah, yeah.
And there's a lesson there to be had.
Because early on, I mean, you know, it was like he identified with Archie Bunker and didn't realize it was really a satire on Archie Bunker. I mean, so it was, But
Yeah.
as Archie Bunker morphed a little bit, he morphed a little bit. You know, so.
So can anybody think of how it feels when we're generous, when you are generous, how it feels inside?
Well, just to play the devil's advocate a little bit, I think, when you're generous, or when I'm generous, I feel very happy. I do feel better giving somebody, especially if it's a thoughtful gift, than receiving. And I wonder, so am I giving because I'm trying to make them happy or me happy?
That's what I was just sitting here thinking too.
Well, and the Dalai Lama talks about that in the book. So,
Yeah, so it comes back, I'm just selfish. Yeah, maybe I am, but what the heck? Same old, right?
Right.
Everybody's happy.
But in that, in an instant, I can't think of an example right off the top of my head, but in an instant, holding the door for somebody, whose arms are full of
Yeah.
holding the door for
Yeah.
you when you couldn't get the door open. Gee, did it occur to me that I'll feel better if I, no.
That's right.
Yeah, you just feel like
I feel a lot better watching Mark drop his coffee.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Or maybe he didn't want me to make a big mess.
That's right.
And a nice church for you. Security.
Right. So yeah, that's, and then where is that feeling? It's a mystery. What's that word, Gary?
Incomprehensible.
Incomprehensible. Where and how we experience that inside of us, like when we meditate in it, and it
Yeah,
asks you where are you experiencing
that's a
this?
really good question. Yeah, I don't understand the whole psychosomatic effect.
Mhm.
Why does it feel some things in the pit of your stomach, some things in your heart, some in the back of the neck?
Other than we each have our own places in our bodies where we experience stress. That's,
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
know
so there's
that.
tension, muscle
Right,
tension.
and part of that has to do with
Yeah,
sometimes traumas.
but don't you think it's kind of weird that we have this thought up here, so then we send a signal here, you clench fists, whatever, stomach ache, ulcers, and then that sends a message back up here, which then exasperates, sends a message down here. It's a negative feedback loop. This is messed up.
Indeed.
You have to de-evolutionize that out of us. Maybe AI would help.
Let me know how that goes, okay?
I think a book like this will address those observations, to say, because Tutu, what happened in South Africa, I don't know how he has such a warm smile and a love in his heart for all that he saw and went through.
Oh, I
How do
don't
you-
know
how
how
do you
he.
attain
I don't know
that?
how he did
And
that.
transcend it.
He told us. For us to
Yeah, I know he told us, but I mean,
Yeah, I'm just
I go,
not sure
come on.
I could get there.
Come on,
Right.
there's no way I could get there. Maybe I could. But you always try to relate yourself to the person speaking. Or, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah, part of it is faith, I think, that you have hope and things are going to get better. That's blind faith, because they may not get better.
So when we think of Christ's example for us, and we talk about this in church on Sunday, and we pray to be more like Christ, do we do that knowing full well that, or thinking, I'll never be able to do that? And
I would like to see us get to where we do it better than what we're doing now. I don't see it as that. I see I'm here, but I'm not quite here. The challenge of our faith is, I told Mark this morning, it's about 2 degrees between the faith and pontificating. And we Christians are notorious for slipping into the pontification real fast. While talking, oh, I love you, and this is wonderful, and this is wonderful. But, you don't dress right, or you're the wrong skin color, or you don't blindly believe. Why aren't you like me? So what are you, the pontificator or the Christian?
That pontification leads into incrimination. Look at the spectrum of Christian denominations.
Joyce.
There's definitely some that are, it's a lot of incrimination.
Yes.
But that was kind of, you know, so it seems though, taking the pontification of it, it seems that we come to church aiming at, geared toward trying to slide just a little bit closer to being like Jesus, because he was our example. And so I'm just implying that not that this is not the I'm not implying this is the Bible, but by the same token, can we use these two people as examples of how to live as they have in terms of making it through all the horrible things that they've experienced and seen.
Yes.
That's all. And I think that was the whole
Yeah.
point of their book, was that kind of.
Yeah, they give you the examples of that. You know,
So
that it can be done, and I always stand in all of them and honor them, you know. And like my grandmother, who did that very beautiful, generous thing for the Hobos. But you have to be able to understand she was doing the best she could from where she came from. When you come from old country Europe, women are nothing but chattel. In her, you know, in the 1890s to the 90s. They were just chattel. The only strength they had was they'd grow their hair and get some money. And that created the Godfather, because he was the one that would enforce. She'd sell her hair for him to say, take care of the uncle that's been beating on me for 3 years. And that's the life she lived. That's what she knew. She could transcend that terrible life. Where she came from, which I always enjoyed. She had a yard of blood, maybe this big, so there was nothing in it. And when she lived in Michigan, they had a 40-acre fruit farm. She had a 2-acre yard. She had died and gone to yard heaven. She had tulips over here. She had roses over here. She had this over here. She had this over here. She, you know, so she saw what she was given to her. But she had a terrible life. And it was ingrained with, she would tell her kids they could only marry English or Italians. Anybody else was beneath them. I thought, how could you say that? You're from Sicily. If you understand Italy, the lower you get, the worse you are. That's the lowest of low.
It's like a caste system, you know? Even the people at the bottom rungs are looking down at the next rung. Yeah.
I remember this guy, he was at Calabrese. You understand, Italy, there's Sicily, and then Naples, and then Calabrese up. And so when he found out I was Sicilian, he came up to me and he said, you know, I'm Calabrese. I'm higher than you. So at one time I found out that we thought my grandfather came from Rome. So I went back to him and I said, well, if you cross a Romano with a Siciliano, it's higher than a Calabrese. Pissed him off for about 6 months. Because I went back and told him, no, my grandpa was from Sicily. He wasn't from Rome. Well, I'm still higher than you. And that was, you know, 30 years ago.
Wow.
We still have that.
You know, when I was in Thailand, there was, you would greet somebody with a,
Yes.
like this. It turned out that how you put your hands is saying how you estimate who they are.
Be careful about that.
Wow.
The higher is the more respectful. And if you had them down here, it's like, you know, you're dirt. But
Gosh.
never knew.
You never knew that.
Well, I would find out, wouldn't I? But anyway, I couldn't figure out then where to put my hands after that.
Yeah, covered the spectrum. Cover all your bases.
Just expose myself.
That's why we do this.
Figure it out, yeah.
I wonder if it's related to chakras.
Well, I'm sure it has a relation to something, but I was lucky to find
So
that
this was
part
in
out.
Thailand, right?
Thailand.
I suppose. Right? Yeah, no, probably not.
Anyway, that was quite a shock, because it was always so beautiful to watch, and I still do it,
Yeah.
you know. When I want to say thank you to somebody, and I have no idea whether they speak my language or not.
Well, it's such a beautiful gesture, the simplicity of just honoring them.
Well, I think about, think internally, for somebody who doesn't know it, and you know it, you can sort of say, well, you know.
If I'm having a
You're
I need to insult
That's
somebody.
You know, when I lived in Australia, so I don't agree, but, you learn a whole this set of slang, it's still English, and it's just a different set of slang, and, and you learn a whole different repertoire of hand gestures, so I came home from Australia, I'm still in high school, and I could use slang that nobody else knew what I was talking about, but I knew what I was talking about.
It's all in context.
Similar with hand gestures, so.
Well, Eastern Italians,
Yeah.
that meant your mother did it. And this was, your mother and your sisters did it. And if they threw it under your leg, your whole family did it.
Well, that's like, in this country, that's kind of okay.
Yeah.
But in some other countries, that's a very serious.
Well, in this
insult.
country, it's become a new symbol, right? It's part of the white supremacy.
Oh,
really?
upside down?
It's a dog whistle for, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Really?
Going like this.
Well, no, upside down. Yeah, so this would be like, okay, but then you can just see somebody doing it.
There is a
Percent.
film of the Americans going through Baghdad and pulling down the statue of
Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein. And there are people in tanks. And an American was doing like this and trying to get a kid to do it on the sidewalk who was watching this. And so the kid did it, and the next thing you see on the film is he's getting slapped in the back of his head.
Apparently, that's not a good thing to do there.
Yeah.
I thought, geez, if you've got soldiers, those are basic things that soldiers could be taught.
Yeah.
Should follow.
Yeah.
Right, there should be a cultural indoctrination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
24-hour crash course.
Want to go on to the next one?
I came in and went to class.
Oh, no, you didn't. What
Yes.
time does this end? Just curious, because we could go on all day.
I know, so you're gonna have to figure out, I'd say it's about 15 minutes or so.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Okay, so 273.
Yeah.
For the next.
We're still kind of going by this because.
And this book doesn't have your page in it.
So start where you are and realize that you are not meant on your own to resolve all of the massive problems. You do what you can. Start where you are and realize that you are not meant on your own to resolve all of the massive problems. Do what you can. Reminds me of what I was thinking when you were talking about how, well, I think both of you might have said that, it's just so hard when we read these stories, to think that we could live that life of destitute. And I was thinking, well, I know I can, but it's sort of like a work in progress. If I just make a little tweak, that's what I call success.
And actually in that quote from the book was in the context of talking about looking at the world and feeling really heartsick when you look at, everywhere you turn, there's something that can make you sad or feel hopeless. The climate, the people, all of it. If I start listing it, it'll make me sad. No, so it's, for me anyway, it's really helpful to remember, start where you can. And certainly with the situation that we have in so many cities now. And I'm reminded of this again, having been in Denver yesterday and had to drive down Colfax. And I've heard about this, but I haven't seen it until yesterday. People actively, not just selling anymore, but actually smoking fentanyl right there on the street corners. And of course dealing too, and going through the motions of what you have to do to coax them. I mean, I sat at several, you didn't go down Colfax, but I sat at several traffic lights, and there was a lot of road construction, and so I watched a lot of what was going on, and that just makes me so heartsick. And I think about how many, I don't know, thousands of people in this country are in that state, and you know, my head whirls around, and then I remember, and this is what I believe, this is something one of the people that works, people in the Faith Council, one of the guys that works with homeless folks, I totally agree with this. One, you can only, if you only impact one, and it's a one person at a time thing, you can't just, you know, you can't just gather up a whole bunch of folks and expect to make a difference, because then you'll truly be let down, and it's very, you know, it can be very disheartening. So it's a one person at a time thing.
Like AA, where they have sponsors.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
one-on-one.
Yeah.
So the job of the sponsor is to support
yes.
the person who's struggling with their addiction.
Anyway, didn't mean to be a downer.
No, but there is a lot out there, and you have to stay safe.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't do it all, you can't even do any of it, almost. And it seems to me that one of the things that we need to be teaching people is how to discern what they're gonna take on. Just so that they can live a good life.
And you have to,
Not be pulled.
I'm slowly learning to be cautious about judging them for their type of behavior. When my mother died, my sister, Mary Jo, was like 1 or 2, and I had to raise her. And in fact, I would tease her, I changed your diapers. And her response would be, and you did a great job. She'd always come right back at me. Because I thought I could then, I got to, no, you don't. But she became extremely opposite of me, religiously and politically, like night and day. And we just stopped communicating. So much so that one of her children, my niece, Virginia, just moved down the street in Monument and hasn't seen me in 3 years. Just down the street, which makes me very sad.
Yes.
But for my wife's death, she had to call me and say, I'm sorry for Sally's death. And we talked for about a half hour. And I think we learned to talk about what was in common that we could accept. And she had sent Virginia to the memorial we had for her. And I just had to say, you know, those are the things I can live with and accept. And it's a start. And I'll have to learn what I can say and not say. But it's better than not saying anything at all. And for about 5 years, we just didn't say hello. I would send a Christmas card, and she would send a Christmas card, and that was it, with pictures. So you find those little niches that allow the connection to happen again.
What my sister and I have worked out is she has really strong beliefs in one direction, and I'm in the other, and she knows. And occasionally she'll get off, and I'll say, Cindy, you know I'm not going to agree with you, and there is something more important going on here, and that's that we are sisters and we love each other. So let's stick to that and hang on to that. And we do pretty well.
And I love that she said we love each other. You know, I don't say that enough. My sister's had a triple bypass surgery, and she has lupus. And her husband is getting a severe case of Alzheimer's.
Um,
So here she's in this throes, surviving and caring for an Alzheimer's person. And I thought, I should have just at least said, I love you, sis. I always will. And I will the next time we talk.
You know, it's
Just because you
important,
said that.
it's important to, get past all this stuff that you're talking about and still keep a relationship with anybody.
So, you saying that, and thank you for, I feel so blessed because I don't have any family members that we disagree on things. We're all
On your side of it.
on my side of the family. Yeah.
The others don't care.
Well, kind of, but, so to sort of maybe digress, but it would be helpful for me kind of in understanding. I think it's not so much the fact that me and a person that I disagree on something. It is I think it's more about the fact that those beliefs are so hurtful,
Yes. Yes.
and otherwise I don't know that I would care so much about changing them, but it's just, they're so hurtful to so many people. And I'd like to think that, so like you and your sister, do you see that at all in some perspective that her beliefs are hateful, and I have a really hard time in my heart of hearts,
They're more harmful to her than they are to anybody
Okay.
else. And that's sad to watch.
That's a good point, Mary, thank you.
Yeah.
That's just really sad, but there's no changing,
No,
And it's, I think, deciding what you can do. And I think that's what I've done.
With the divide that you talk about, the social or conservative or liberal view of social policies, that on the liberal side, it seems to be policies that are trying to address the needs of the poor, trying to lift some people up through education and safety nets. On the right side, they would probably argue that I'm getting hurt too, that I'm threatened by you because I'm a white male and I'm no longer the dominant alpha guy. So the whole DeSantis campaign, right? With the attack on the woke culture. Well, that's coming from, I think, a insecurity of feeling like they're going to get disenfranchised.
That's like
Absolutely.
in Charlottesville, the chant that they were chanting about, you're not going to replace us.
Yeah,
Something like that.
right, yeah. I forgot about that, right.
yeah, that was from 1619 project that we watched.
Well, I'd heard that
Okay,
before, but
sorry.
yeah, that refreshed my memory when I heard that.
But to your point, Mary, that so if we take the view that I feel hurt because my status in my caste system is now becoming more equalized,
Yeah.
and so then I'm not going to get as privileged, then I feel threatened, I feel hurt,
Yeah.
I have fear.
Yep.
As I grow older, and so those are all real emotions. They're different types of emotions, but they're all real emotions. And I think that's why we just can't agree on it, because they're so diverse.
Well, Mark, I think there's such a conflict with our faith. Being a Christian is a tough job. And if you don't honestly address it every day, it just gets away from you. And then for me, to my sister, I would say, you believe in the teachings of Jesus, but these things you're saying, there's nothing in it that I understand. He said this kind of thing. Why do you do that? Why do you talk like that? She would just hang up. She would just hang up. And she's a fundamentalist Baptist that really believes in the basic little interpretation of the Bible and all the, this is this, and this is this. God says this, and therefore this is this.
And there is a faction of Christians who also believe with that argument, what would Jesus do? Or, how can you translate this? That they would also argue that we are using a liberalized interpretation of the Bible. And they're not.
And therefore,
They're
we
using
are
the
wrong.
real one, and we're using the liberalized version.
If they
It's like, how
believe,
do you don't argue with that.
they don't, because they believe that man and dinosaurs were together 6,000 years ago. And you're like, oh, really? How do you respond to that? So I don't, I just have to.
Yeah.
But I remember the
Yes,
times we were
don't.
together and how special.
No.
You know, she had a tough life because her mother wasn't there. And I'm not gonna share it, but she had a real tough life. And she has transcended that and has 4 wonderful kids. And if I was her, I don't think I could be as strong as she was.
And
You
to
have
say
honor
that to
for
her is what you could do.
I haven't said that to
You
her,
need to say that to her.
because she did things that brought the family together. You're right, I need to honor her for what she has accomplished. She has an amazing family. Wonderful kids, grandkids, and the things that she's accomplished.
Well, you mentioned the 5 languages of love. I went out and downloaded that and listened to it this week, and I'd never heard of that before.
Oh,
So that was,
yeah.
but you're talking about the positive affirmations that you can give somebody.
Yeah.
My brother has mastered that. He's, and he's an awkward social person, sort of. Oh, he isn't listening. Anyway,
It's on the internet.
I'll tell him which one to look at. But he's mastered sort of getting into a situation, calming down, and
Yeah.
looking for the good thing to say,
That's
and then doing it. And I can hear him doing it with me, and I think, aren't you relaxed enough yet not to worry about that?
Well, to respect everybody's time, I guess we'll go ahead and end, because 10, or whatever, 15 it is, sounds like a good time. But I guess, as I was saying before, maybe Mary came in, that to me, the important thing about this book and our conversations was to be thinking about what practices, the question says, are most excited, what we're most excited about, or to integrate in our lives. And I was curious about what if anything, people have tried to integrate in their lives. But I think we can kind of get a sense now, already, at least in this small group, how we have tried and continue to try, hopefully, with God's help, to integrate some of these things into our lives. Closing thoughts.
Well, yeah, just to launch off of that, and listening to the conversations over the past month and a half or more, it seems like what we heard was things that encouraged the pillars of joy, and maybe some new ideas too that we're going to take on. It's both good to continue and then awesome. There's other things. And they're easy to do. It's all work in progress, baby steps.
Anybody else have parting thoughts or closing statements?
Yes, I have mine.
Go and sit
That's what you
down
can
more.
do. Yeah, go and sit there more.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for
taking this on.
being in and out, yeah.
And thank you for all your work.
Yes.
It's fun stuff.